Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, distinguished guests, esteemed viewers. I am delighted to welcome you to another exciting edition of our online learning and leadership conversation. Thank you for joining us from different locations across the world and this country, as well as those that are on site right now. I remain Comfort Eyitayo, your regular host for the Connect with Comfort show. On this program, we aim to add value to people on business, enterprise, and personal growth. Each show is organized to feature special guests who are subject matter experts that helps us to throw more insight on the topic of the day. Once again, I would like to welcome you warmly. We are glad you are able to join us. Today's topic is one that affects every professional, every team, every organization, and indeed every leader. We often spend years developing technical skills, professional qualifications, and industry expertise. Yet, many workplace conflicts, leadership failure, poor team relationship, and even career stagnation are not caused by lack of competence, but by inability to understand and manage emotions effectively. That brings us to today's important conversation on emotional intelligence in the workplace, the hidden skill that drives performance, leadership, and workplace harmony. Emotional intelligence, often called EQ, has become one of the most sought after competencies in today's workplace. In a world where collaboration, communication, adaptability, and people management are increasingly important, emotional intelligence has moved from a nice to have skill to a must have capability. And that is why we are examining this today in order to position ourselves properly. In today's conversation, we will be exploring what emotional intelligence really means, why it matters in the modern day workplace. We will also consider how it influences leadership effectively, how professionals can improve their emotional intelligence. We will also look at some practical steps organizations can take to build emotionally intelligent culture. To guide us through this conversation, we have a distinguished guest who is not a stranger on this show. She has obliged us with her vast experience on different occasions on this show. She's already with us and will be tapping from her wealth of experience shortly after this time out. So please remain connected. We'll be right back. Thank you.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Distinguished audience, this is the time to meet our special guest for today's show. Like I said, she is not a strange face on this show, and she is by name Rhoda Odibo. Quickly to acquaint us, especially for those joining us now, Rhoda is a teacher by training and a system leader by practice, shaping the future of whole child education across Africa and the global south. She is the CEO of Kizazi, where she leads large-scale public education partnerships spanning foundational, primary, and secondary education, integrating learning quality, social and emotional development, and community-rooted school transformation. She is also the founder of the Learning Craft, a curriculum and teacher development platform working with schools and governments. And she is the convener of the Pan-African Convening on Social and Emotional Learning with the acronym of PAXEL, a continental space aligning policy makers and practitioners around human development and well-being. With nearly 2 decades of experience across classrooms, government reforms, and global innovation, Rhoda is a leading voice in recentering education around human flourishing, adolescent development, and future readiness in AI-driven world. Now you can see why she's the appropriate person, an expert on this very unique topic. Please, ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming warmly our special guest for today's show, Rhoda Udigo.
Thank you so much.
Rhoda, you are welcome. And once again, we want to appreciate you highly for willing to share your experience with us and also impacting on people's development positively. Thank you very much. We do not take this for granted. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. It's my pleasure to be here. A second time, and I just love it. It was the first time, it was a wonderful conversation we had. I still remember it every time. Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Thank you very much. I hope this one will also go if the same way, if not better, than the first experience. You are
Yes.
welcome. We are glad to have you.
Thank you.
Now, to start off, when people hear the term emotional intelligence, they often assume it simply means being emotional or being nice to people. So, in simple terms, what exactly is emotional intelligence and why should every professional care about it?
Okay. Like I said, I think when I was still back behind this scene, I was saying to you that this is my favorite topic. So I'll make sure
Yes.
that I'm very sharp shooting with my answer so that I don't go overboard. Um, Emotional intelligence. Okay, so these are two words put together. Emotion now coming from the root word emotion and intelligence. I mean, emotions, if we put them together or we separate them, emotions are emotions as we know them, they, our feelings. We have six basic emotions. We have happiness, we have sadness, we have anger, fear, surprise, disgust. Those are our like basic emotions. And then we have other common ones like love, like shame, trust. Some emotions they are like excitement, those ones that come from anticipation. There's envy, there's jealousy, there's sometimes you feel a sense of calm, it's a relief, and then you still feel a sense of boredom. These things come in many shapes as emotions. Now, with intelligence, when you know what those emotions are, because they come in mixes, then there is the intelligence. And intelligence is basically an ability. It's an ability, is your brain's ability to do a number of things. Your brain's ability to learn, your brain's ability to understand what you're learning, to reason, to solve problems, and then to use those things to adapt to your situation. So if you put those two together, it simply just tells us in simple terms that emotional intelligence is a person or an ability to understand what is happening inside of you, and then for you to manage that your response. Okay, manage your response and then relate wisely with other people, because emotional intelligence, you would feel all your emotions, but how do you use it? What do you understand that to be? How do you respond with it? And then how do you use it to relate to other people? When you do very well with that emotion and the way you manage them and how you respond, then it is said that you're emotional intelligent. Because whether you have what do you do with anger? What do you do with happiness? What do you do with sadness? What will you do with all of that emotion? And your ability to understand it, use it, problem solve with it, adapt to your situation is then you saying or building your intelligence. And one can then say, describe and say, you are emotional intelligence. So, why should every professional care about it? Well, I guess we don't live in silos. Everybody needs somebody to do some work in the business of our professions. So every professional should care, because work is not only about competence. That is the kind of competence that we went to school to learn, right? In your specific field of a work. Work is also about a number of things, about people you work with, it's about pressure that will come to you. A lot of times, work is about communication. And a lot of times, work is about trust. So imagine that there is a finance officer who discovers that there is an error in a report 5 minutes before they go into a board meeting. Now, that finance officer can go into panic, right? And start to blame everybody, blame the junior staff, start to create tension in the room. But for that finance officer to be able to enter into the space of being emotionally intelligent, one emotional intelligent response is to pause and then correct what can be corrected, and then be able to communicate clearly what that is and address the process later. That is the issues that the person has identified later. What is happening in this situation is that the work is still being done, but people are not destroyed because there was an error. So every professional should care about emotional intelligence because it affects everything we do. It affects the you, the individual, it affects the work culture, it affects the work energy, it affects even future mistakes that you people can make. And it also affects well-being, a sense of well-being and a sense of purpose. So that's what I would say emotional intelligence is. It's really just your ability to understand what is happening inside of you, to know how to manage that your response, and then to relate quite wisely with other people.
Fantastic, fantastic. In fact, you've answered so many questions in one. Fantastic. I think nobody will be left in doubt as to the meaning, true meaning of emotional intelligence with that much explicit insights you have given to us. Thank you very much. With that, you even taking my second question off. But I would like to ask the emotional intelligence, how it differs from IQ. You know, we hear
Mhm.
IQ, IQ. Now, is it in technical competence or whatever? How does it differ from IQ?
Okay, so when we think about when we say IQ, I think everybody knows that we they call it the intelligence quotient. And sometimes other people will track intelligence quotients, your intelligence quotient with your technical competence. That is the things that you actually know how to do in this place of work, right? And so IQ in itself, or maybe technical competence, will help you to know that task that you. So in finance, for example, I'm still using finance as an example, but as a finance, you know your work, you know your accounting rules, you know your banking rules, you know as a teacher, you know exactly what you need to do when it comes to pedagogy. As a doctor, and depending on the type of the medical field, you know your work areas. But in emotional intelligence then helps you work well with people while you're doing that work. So for example, a person can be excellent with maybe their spreadsheets. They will be good in strategy. They understand what they're doing. Like I said, in medicine or teaching or law, engineering, they know what they're doing. But that person might still struggle because why? They don't know how to receive feedback. Once somebody tells them that, oh, there's something wrong with this spreadsheet, or that I think that maybe there's a mistake that's been made here, the person goes into anger mode. They don't know how to manage their anger. They might be good with everything they do technically, but really poor with managing, receiving feedback, with managing their anger, with listening to other people, or even when they're under pressure, manage and handle that pressure. So I have been in situations where I've had brilliant managers. They understand what we do with our business. But guess what? They constantly embarrass people in meetings. And over time, people will stop bringing ideas to meetings. Why? Fear of making mistakes, because within this person, mistakes have to be hidden. It is not as though the mistakes are not being made, but they have to be hidden. And by the time you find those mistakes, it is precisely because the people that this manager works with managing are afraid to make mistakes around them. And so what happens is that the team becomes afraid of the manager, and work gets worse or gets stalled because of the fear. So your technical skill may make you useful, yes, no doubt. But the difference with emotional intelligence is that it makes you somebody that is trusted. It makes you somebody that the best professionals around you will want to be with. So people who want to create or improve their skill set need to learn how to work with people, need to learn how to manage others, need to learn how to manage themselves, their own, regulate their own emotions in such a way that they are able to then manage pressure that comes with work, manage anger that comes with work, manage even excitement that comes with work, because sometimes excitement causes people to make mistakes. So the best professionals in the world, and now, and that's what we are learning more and more, the kind of competencies we need for people. The best professionals are now choosing between these two. They're choosing between your IQ and your EQ, your emotional intelligence. And people want with staff that have the two of them.
Brilliant. I think you've done it again, trying to pack so much into one, which is fantastic. It's helping our audience, I want to believe, that we'll be able to differentiate. In fact, managing people, we've been told that is a very important skill. It's a skill set to have, and I think that is aligned to the emotional intelligence we are talking about. Like if people are afraid to express ideas in your presence, some good ideas will be lost, and
Yes.
the strength of the team will be weakened because people are afraid to talk or avoid to make mistakes that will be shouted down. So it's very important. It's very important to have such a skill. What are some common signs that a person may need to improve their emotional intelligence? How do you assess those who need urgent attention?
I like this question. I like this question because this is where a lot of people just stop in their tracks and say, "Oh, I didn't know." One of the ones that everybody observes easily, one sign is that you react quickly and regret it later.
Mhm.
Yes. There's a difference between reaction and responsiveness. A situation can get you angry, can get you sad, can get you excited, can get you feeling dysregulated. It can a mix of emotions. Do how you react matters a lot. Now, we often say instead of reaction, go the route of response. The difference between reaction and response is that there is a pause to think about what you want to say and how you want to act. One sign common that a person needs to improve their emotional intelligence is how they react. Is the speed with which they react to any situation, and usually once they have reacted, they regret it later. Immediately if you find yourself in that space where you react quickly and regret it later, that's one sign that you need to improve your emotional intelligence. Another one is that when people give you correction, you take it personally. One of the things that I've learned, and I had to learn it, is that I don't assume intent. That when someone says something wrong to me or gives me feedback, that their intention is to hurt me. No, you don't assume intent to harm or intent to hurt. Another sign that you need emotional intelligence is that anytime you're corrected, you take it as a jab to your personality. Another one is that people are always careful around you because they do not know which version of you that they will meet.
We're dealing with.
You're unpredictable. Unpredictability of your emotions or how you respond to things is a sign that you need emotional intelligence or that you need to improve your emotional intelligence. You should be predictable enough, especially in the workplace. People should be able to say, this is what I did, this is how I expect this person to react about this. The people often think it's the other way. Oh, no one should be able to predict you. When they are not able to predict you, then they can make a lot of mistakes. So the predictability is one feature of an emotionally intelligent person. Another very common one that happens in the workplace is when a person says, "Listen, that's just how I am." They will speak harshly and they'll say, "That's how I am." They will interrupt people when someone is speaking. They will interrupt the person and say, "That's how I am." They will, when someone gives them a feedback, they will dismiss it. Well, that is how I am, and then they expect everybody around them to adjust to that statement. That's how I am. That's just how I am. You need to improve your emotional intelligence. Another one that I also find that a lot of people don't discuss often is where they avoid, and I call it the avoidance. Some people will not shout, they will just, what they do is that they will avoid any difficult conversation. They will keep avoiding it until the issue becomes so big and it has escalated in such a way that lots more people have come into the space of the problem when it could have been easily solved if a difficult conversation was had. You and that person, whoever, needs to improve their emotional intelligence. So, emotional intelligence is not just like, you're not only, it's not loud anger, right? That is emotional. When you are low on emotional intelligence, doesn't mean that you are loud. Sometimes it's that you are quiet. Um, it can also be that you are being defensive, or you want to withdraw, you want to play, or people that gossip a lot. Gossiping, yes, if you find yourself always itchy to gossip, you need to improve your emotional intelligence. So, what people need to do is to ask themselves, what do other people experience when they work with me when I'm under pressure? Ask yourself that question. When you're under pressure and people are working with you, what is their experience? Then that should give you a good way to evaluate your emotional intelligence levels.
Very good, very good. At least I've learned something in between what you said, because uh, I used to say maybe if you can predict the way somebody will react to you, that may not be a lacking in emotional intelligence, but you said it otherwise, and I can see the reason. Because sometimes predictability varies. It can be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, definitely typical of this person is likely to react this way." And that way that is he or she is reacting, it's not in the positive side of things. That some people who are people you can easily describe as bully, they shout you
Mhm.
down. Once what you are saying, even before you finish, is not in tandem with what they want to hear, just shut you down and things like that. So to that extent, you can say this is a predictable person because he
Mhm.
does this always. But you made it clear that the anger or whatever we can call it is not the same as
Yeah.
lacking emotional intelligence. So one has to really look in between.
Mhm.
Either you are predictable for good stuff or
Mhm.
for for negativity.
Yes.
So
Yes.
thank you for that insight. Now let's bring this to the leadership quality that we would expect in terms of emotional intelligence, the
Mhm.
value in leadership.
Mm.
Why do many leadership experts consider emotional intelligence as a critical leadership competency?
Yeah, the answer okay. So leadership in itself is about people. I think whenever we say, "Oh, this person is a leader," the first thing that comes to our mind is that this person is leading humans. So leadership is first about people, not plans, not strategy, not no.
Mm,
It's about first about people. A leader can have like a beautiful, like I said, can have a beautiful plan, a beautiful spreadsheet, a beautiful strategy, can have a beautiful agenda. But if people do not trust that leader, you and I know that that strategy will struggle. Some people will go behind and start doing one or two things that will stifle what the leader has planned,
Cross
or
purpose.
frustrate it, or interpret it differently. So I mean, for example, if for example you are there's during it, maybe I've been in organizations where they decided to do a restructuring. They moved one department to another. Well, they merged one in department into another. Now, when they were doing that merger, there are some certain director level roles that started to look like, who am I going to report to? We were mates, we're on the same level. Now, because my own department is now supposed to be the one subsumed under that person's department, and both of us have been at the same level, am I reporting to my mates? Two leaders may have to, and in this case, we saw situations where two leaders are having to deliver the same, sort of deliver the same goals. Um, and there was one time we had so much struggle. There was such a struggle. At one time, there was this messaging that we needed to go to everybody's teams. It was a difficult message. It was very hard. The one person was like, "Oh, how am I going to tell?" Like, there are people in my team that already saying they don't want to, that they're frustrated. It seems like they're not going to be part of. They want to remove them from this role, and people were already saying, "Oh, I'm not earning this. I'm not earning that." Now they want to remove me or push me to this place. What to, different difficult situations. One leader was avoiding their team. Instead of talking and having human conversations, the leader was sending cold emails and allowing rumors to spread. Another leader, rather than doing that, brings the team together, explains what they know, admits what is still uncertain to that team, and then treats people with dignity. Why? Because she brings the leader and she says, "This is what the company is going through. There's going to be a restructuring. Feel free to share with me how you feel after I explain everything I know. Here are the things I know, here are the things I don't know. I want to ensure that each one of you has visibility on what we're doing. And that's why it's important for us." The other person sends cold emails. "Well, it's not my business. It's the company that's restructuring. I don't want to have this conversation." Both leaders are facing the same business reality, but you see the difference between their emotional intelligence.
Approach.
The
Yeah.
one person's emotional intelligence protects the trust of her team, while the other doesn't. So leadership really, really, really requires that sense of decision making, that sense of deep listening, deep reflection, that sense of courage, and a very high level of calm. You have to be calm, and all of these things are what we call competencies of emotionally intelligent people. You see it in their practices. So that's the reason why many leadership experts will say that emotional intelligence is important, because it's about people.
You're right. You're right. The way you treat people is the way they respond to you. Like the example you gave, people are like more likely, in fact, I would say certain, to respond positively and in cooperation with the leader that explains very well, uh, taking, I mean, regarding them in the decision
Mhm.
making process and making them feel important and giving the sense of belonging rather than the one that is sending cold email. There are
Mhm.
two different worlds. So the reaction will be different. So it's very important for our leaders to understand how to manage people. And
Mm.
that's part of what makes your team to be strong anyway. Thank you
Yeah.
very much for that explanation. What role does empathy play in effective leadership?
Hmm. Empathy is everything. There's a difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is like you look at somebody's situation and from a distance you feel for them. You are kind of disconnected with the pain that they're experiencing. While empathy You then take yourself and put yourself, you imagine yourself in that situation. You imagine yourself having going through that kind of pain that the person is going through. That's the difference between sympathy and empathy. So when people in the workspace, in the workplace, are able to build and grow their empathy, what it does is that it helps you as an individual, whether you're a leader, and by the way, everybody is a leader. I like to say it this way, that when we get to the we all need to get, as individuals, particularly in the workspace, we all need to get to the point where we are CEOs of our function. So if you are the security, the gate man, you are CEO of the gates. So leadership is conferred on everybody in their specific work function. So empathy does then helps everybody to understand. First of all, if you have to put yourself in the situation of another person, what happens typically is that you understand what the person can be going through. You're feeling that if it were I, oh, I'll be devastated. If it were I'll be thrilled and I'll be excited about what is going on. That's why jealousy and envy are not traits, or yes, are not traits or habits of people who are emotionally intelligent, because emotionally intelligent people see the other person's joy and they want to put themselves in that situation, that, oh, I will be as joyful if that happens to me. And they begin to see that situation as something that, if it happens to them, they'll be happy. And for that reason, they're happy for the person. So empathy actually helps leaders understand people better. But the truth of about empathy that a lot of people also don't get is that it must be balanced with accountability. Because empathy for us is not saying because you are going through a difficult thing or difficult time that nothing is going to matter again. So, for example, somebody is always, you are line managing someone, and the person is, always coming to work late. Now, you understand the reason why the person is always coming to work late, right? But at some point, because you understand, maybe the person comes from a distance, or maybe the person is having a problem in the family, maybe there's something going on. You do understand it, but it doesn't mean that you should not follow the process that you have in your office. No. If the process in your office says, if you come late consecutively for 5 days in a row, you should be given a query. You should give the query. However, empathy says you understand what the person is going on. You have documented the query inside your query, what issues are that you understand it to be. However, the person needs to be what? Compliant or accountable to be given the reasons officially why that is happening. So accountability is not enemies with empathy. So when you are, no matter what that person is going through, and because you understand it, doesn't mean nothing matters. You understand this is difficult. Let us look at what support you need and what you still need, like what still has to be delivered versus what you are going through. You're coming to work late, but you need to be early for work because this and that and that. So those things are very, very important. A leader without empathy may just be simply labeling and everything as unserious, right? But a leader with empathy will first understand what is happening, and then after that, they will still agree on what the work arrangement is, what the expectations are, what the timeline is. That's mature leadership. So empathy really helps people feel seen, and accountability will now, at just around there, will help the work to continue. And good leaders need both of them. I don't want to ever, you will never, because you're empathetic doesn't mean you should not be accountable.
Very correct. Thank you very much for that explicit explanation. I think we have a contribution. I think our guests, our audience rather, is also supporting the point you made earlier about that example you gave of the leader that explains situation as opposed to the one that's sending code email. and that is contribution is coming from Dr. Aseyin, streaming from Abuja. It's one of our regular contributor, and it goes thus: communication and engagement with employees are the
Mm.
hallmarks of effective leadership. Definitely, one can see from the example you gave, and this
Sure.
corroborated that is giving that other leader is having effective leadership because it's able to carry along, explain things to the employees and carry them along, and they are likely to be more uh, cooperative than in the other scenario. Thank you very much, Dr. Aseyin. And there's another one he said, empathy brings out the humanity in a leader without compromising corporate culture and
Yes.
value. Nice,
Yes.
an icing of the cake of the explanation that our guests gave about having to do the needful, even though you understand. You understand the situations. Yes, the needful still has to be done. You still have to be compliant. Thank you very much, Dr. Saying, for those two beautiful contributions. Now, what mistakes do leaders commonly make when dealing with employees' emotions?
Ah, okay. This one is very common, very common, and it is simple. One mistake is that leaders commonly dismiss emotions of their employees. I've heard this often, in fact, closer even home. I've heard it being said many times. Leave your emotions at home. But you see, people do not work like machines. We're not machines.
Mhm.
Our emotions are always with us. So it is impossible actually to leave your emotions at home, out of work. Things like stress is an emotion. It's even though medical, as many doctors will say, it comes with emotions. Okay, let's leave stress. Things like fear, things like anxiety or frustration or even happiness, things like that. Grief. Sometimes people are we've had staff who are grieving. Grief, people always think of grief like you must have lost, maybe somebody died. Actually, relationships die. I was saying, I was talking with a friend of mine, and I was saying that people don't talk too much about breakups between girlfriends. Like when you have your friends, you're girls, you're a lady, you're a woman, you have your female friends. Maybe somebody was your best friend and you broke up. People don't talk about that. Or you're a guy, you have a friend and you both fought and you are having a bad fight. It's grief too. People don't discuss these things. But that person, because they have work to do, they don't have emotions. That is one common mistake that leaders make. You dismiss emotions of people. No, all of these emotions affect human beings' performance at work. They do. And so, if you want to be an effective leader, you have to build your emotional intelligence by acknowledging emotions. Another one that I have observed is when people allow, this is now the opposite of it, because that's why intelligence brings balance. The opposite is that you allow emotions to as an excuse to everything. As we said earlier about empathy, help the organization. It's not everything because because I'm feeling sad, I'm not able to do this, and the person, okay, 1 hour, 2 hours have gone, nobody has done the work. No, it is not to say that you would then say to the person, leave your emotions. Nobody cares about your emotion. Please do the work and deliver on that task. Mm-mm. Emotional intelligence says, I acknowledge the way you are feeling. I know we had a conversation earlier. We still need to get this task done. Let's discuss that when you are done. When you are done, get this thing to me and let us talk about what you may be going through. That's a clear difference. And keeps the person, what you have done is you have made that staff, that colleague of yours, find a way to balance their emotions at that point, but at the same time deliver on their task. Another mistake that many people make is they make assumptions. Like I said earlier, I've assuming intention. For example, an employee who suddenly became quiet in meetings. This is somebody who used to contribute, give ideas, share creative, stuff. A leader might say, you are no longer committed to this our work. Just because the person stops talking or suddenly becomes quiet, then does that mean that the person is no longer committed? I've seen it happen. I'm using real life examples of experience. But an emotionally intelligent leader will say, I have you have become quieter recently. Is there something affecting you? Is there something going on in your life? Is there something that you might want to share? You see the difference between you're no longer committed versus I notice you have become quiet. Is there something going on? You see, these two statements or this statement that replaces you are no longer committed, it does not remove accountability. What it does is that it opens the door of understanding. So the balance there, I always say, is that you acknowledge with that emotional intelligence brings is that you, leader, acknowledges the person, but then also addresses the work. And so, yeah, these are the common mistakes, that leaders make when they're dealing with emotions of their colleagues and employees.
Okay. Let's consider this. What should professionals do when dealing with difficult colleagues or toxic workplace behavior?
Okay, so let me be straight with this one. What should you do when you are dealing with a difficult colleague or when you are working in a toxic environment? Gen Z employees love the word toxic. Oh, this place is toxic. It's a toxic environment. Okay, let's just scratch that. But this is what actually trying to tackle real toxic workplace behavior. I always say it this way: do not become the behavior that you are complaining about. If someone is rude, do not become rude to prove that you can also be rude. Okay? So yes, the person is becoming difficult, the person is becoming toxic. You showing that same toxic behavior, that behavior is one of the first things you should not do, because what you are doing is that you're demonstrating exactly what you don't like. So why should they listen to you? Why should they listen to you? So that's the first thing. Do not demonstrate the same toxicity. Do not demonstrate the same difficult behavior that person is demonstrating. Because listen, you see, you may at some point fire the person, but what you have done also is to show others that is acceptable behavior because you have demonstrated it. That will be the first one I would say. The second one for me is that as much as possible, name the behavior. Give it a name. Don't hide it in words. For example, if somebody interrupts a lot during meetings, I and because of as a result of that person's interruptions, I'm unable to finish my point. Hmm? You need to ensure that you name the interruption. You say to the person, I think we should focus on listening to the person who has the microphone at this point, or the who has been given the to speak at this time. Let the person complete, name it. Let us not interrupt while speaking. Name any behavior. If someone is name it, being rude, space is being dismissive, it's not be dismissive in the workplace. You name them. Then another thing I would say that professionals should do is collect your data. By that I mean document the things that you're saying, document patterns. If you are seeing someone demonstrating the same behavior, documenting it, right? Some people do it this way. They have, some workspaces, they have a behavior sheet, and they have and then they put it down just to make sure that they're watching, what are the things that people are doing that is affecting our work culture, our work energy, our work spirit. So document patterns, because if the behavior continues and is affecting the work, you have to document it. Then make sure that you escalate and escalate through the right channels. Now, most offices, at least I know that offices usually try to have someone playing the role of human resource. In the recent times, departments are now called people departments. Humanize the function, right? People departments, departments, or whoever working in that capacity needs to make sure that they're escalating, to channel. If the escalation is still, let it go and say this is what we are observing. Don't escalate when it's only one time, because it can. But if it is frequent and consistent, you have to also document it. Because emotional intelligence doesn't mean you have to tolerate toxic behavior. Please, no. What it means is that you have to respond with self-control. You have to respond with clarity, and you will have to respond with boundaries or things that are acceptable and not acceptable, but doing it with respect and kindness, and it's not about being nice. It's about dignifying the humans, keeping boundaries set, naming what is wrong, documenting what it will become a pattern, and creating that clarity in the workspace that these are the things that we need to have as our work culture.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Can emotional intelligence be learned and developed?
Oh, yes, 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 yes. You know, one mistake that education made for decades until today is that we have assumed that what people need in the long term after they complete their education is only academics. All right. And hence, because, for example, it is, I don't know, I think I've shared this on my social media pages, that it is not natural to learn to read, actually. It's not a natural thing. The way it is natural for us to be born and to see, right? We have our eyes and we can see. We have our nose. Those are natural things. That our hair will grow if we, as we grow. Our bones will stretch as we grow. These things are natural things. And there are other things in the space of world where you can look at a plant and you can observe the plant is growing. These are natural phenomenon. But if you will learn that, if you put water and you give sunlight, the plant will grow. It's not natural to read. So human beings had to learn to read. And then education systems were designed to only teach us to be ready with our technical competencies. That is the skill we need to do that work. But forgetting that we do it in the world of people, in the world of others. And we also do it with our emotions. And that's why emotional intelligence often looked at like something that you are born with. No one is born emotionally intelligent, because life itself is difficult. Life presents a lot of things and a lot of challenges to us every single day. And for that reason, it is an intelligence area that needs to be taught. So yes, the premise is that it needs to be taught for it to be learned, because and for it to be learned and for it to be practiced, because you must practice it. If everybody goes around town, responding or reacting the way they feel, a lot of us will be. And I dare say that part of the problems that we're facing, both at the workplace and at home, is because people have not learned how to control and manage their behaviors or their emotions. You do not become emotionally intelligent because you attended one training. No, no, no. You grow is by noticing your patterns and choosing better responses, and some repeatedly, and you are practicing it. I was telling my daughters the other day that if you want to stop eating bad food, like food that you know is not good for you, when you go to the supermarket and you see Coke, Fanta, and you say no, and you say, oh, you don't want to be drinking sugary, you want to work on a diet, and you don't want to be taking sugary drinks. When you enter the supermarket, you still see Coke and Fanta. It is your ability to stop yourself, even though the Coke and Fanta is dragging you, to say to yourself, this thing is dragging me, but I'm not going to buy it. That is when you conquer it. That is when you build intelligence or your muscle for rejecting bad food. You don't run away. If you keep running away from that, sometimes you can run away, But you run away from a market that has coke and fata everywhere? No, you have to build it. So emotional intelligence can be learned, but uh, and just the way we practice mathematics is the way we the way we learn to read is the way we have to learn and put ourselves in the situation, teach people how to practice doing differently. Practice when they want to write an email. Sometimes when you're writing a WhatsApp message because somebody sent you something you don't like, and you're writing this, but if you respond at that time to the person, which a lot of people do. They don't know that there's something called pause and take a deep breath before you reply a message. But many times when you go to WhatsApp platforms, you see people insulting themselves. That's because nobody is pausing or has built their intelligence or has learned to say, you know what, before I respond, I will stop, I will reflect, I will think about it, give it 6 seconds before I type and choose my words carefully. So yes, it can be taught. Yes, it can be learned. Yes, you need to practice it just the way you practice reading. You practice all you know in your area of this. Emotional intelligence is like a muscle, and it grows when you use it in real situations. It's not just when you talk about it. So people have to be trained. What is the difference between this email and that email? Let us analyze it. This email, this word, what can we replace with this word, that word, and you will have different results. So it is a learning, and it's something that we do
Thank,
for offices, and people need to continue to, you know, learn
thank
it.
you, thank you very much. I know we are going to struggle for time because of the importance of the topic. But I believe you really shared great insight. I will just quickly read what Dr. Asayin gave as contribution and then wrap up. If your colleague go low, go high on work
Mm,
ethic and set or demonstrate the high standard as a professional. I think that's also echo what you said about setting the right example. Thank you very much. Rhoda, as usual, you've done wonderfully well. You shared your knowledge, practical insights on this very important topic. I wish we can go on. Sometimes this is such a time that I wish I can have something to nip the time and make it stand still, but it's not possible. One of the biggest lessons from today's discussion is that success at work is not determined by technical competence alone. People may be hired because of their qualification and expertise, but they are often promoted, trusted, and remembered when because of how they relate with people. Because this one has been stressed, just even like how managers relate with people. Emotional intelligence enables us to understand ourselves better, manage our emotions effectively, communicate respectfully, build stronger relationships, resolve conflicts constructively, and we lead with empathy and influence. A lot of this has been stressed in the discussion today. So, in today's rapidly changing workplace, emotional intelligence is no longer an option, it is essential. That has also been well demonstrated by our special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, as we conclude today's session, I would like us to remember that every workplace is ultimately a human environment. Process matter, technology matters, qualification matter, but people matter most. The ability to understand emotion, connect with others, respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively, and create positive relationships remain one of the greatest assets any professional can possess. I want to thank you once again for this enriching discussion, my special guest, Rhoda. And I will say on behalf of our audience, thank you once again because I'm sure you have impacted a lot with all these great insights. So I thank everyone joining today. I've been able to pencil down some names. I'll quickly run through them. I have Alexander Uchechukwu from Anambra, I believe. Then Madu, maybe Sudan or something. If I don't pronounce that very well, forgive me. Taiwo Ojo from Abuja, one of our regulars, and Dr. Aseyin that has contributed to our conversation today, also a regular streaming from Abuja. So I want to thank all of you, and those that have not been able to mention their name, please forgive me. I see a name, Ochizo Chukwu. Please, you know yourself. Forgive me if I don't pronounce it very well. Thank you for joining us. And others, Chileola Akibowale from Ibadan. I appreciate all of you. I hope the purpose of this session has been well served with the great insights our guest has shared with us. Thank you very much, Rhoda. Thank you. We cannot have enough of you. May God bless
Thank
you.
you.
And thank you
Amen.
for sharing this knowledge. So, on
Thank you.
behalf of everybody, the team, and the audience, we appreciate you, Rhoda. And we pray that one of these days you oblige us again and not consider us as Oliver Twist. Thank you
No,
again. So,
thank you.
we encourage those that are watching to share this lesson. If you believe you benefited, to share with someone, your colleague, your team, and the organization, those who believe can benefit from this great session. So until next time, continue learning, continue growing, and continue leading with excellence. So please remember to share uh, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and then turn on notification button when you have done. Share our videos, other news that we have on our Instagram account, Facebook account at Comfort Eyitayo. I look forward to seeing all of you at our next conversation. Have a wonderful day and goodbye.